Hello, good morning, and welcome to Unacademy IAS, a one stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. This is Shyam Kaggod here, taking up the Hindu news analysis for 6th August 2026. Now, before I start, please do let me know that I'm audible and visible for all of you. Those present in the session, please give the confirmation. Thanks a lot. Let's start. So, in today's session, I've taken a total of only 12 articles, and as usual, I'll give you homework as well from a different newspaper. This particular compilation has been done in order to ensure that you'll have a comprehensive coverage of all the current affairs articles from different newspapers, which will help you answer the questions in the prelims as well as mains examination. If you're liking this initiative, do not forget to hit the like button. If you are yet to join the Unacademy IAS YouTube channel, then do it right now. Let me start the discussion with a very important announcement. All the Unacademy IAS courses right now are available at a price of 24,999. Once you enroll, you will get access to the live as well as recorded lectures in English medium, bilingual as well as Hindi medium. You will get access to the prelims as well as mains test series, mentorship services, current affairs initiative by the name of UCAN, amongst many other things. Those interested in enrolling, do check out the details by clicking on the link provided in the description below. And whatever is the price mentioned in the website, make sure that you use the code IAS English to get the discount as well as get an extension of up to 6 months free of cost. Let's start. First important article: Fiscal Federalism, Efficiency versus Equity Concerns. In recent times, there has been a lot of discussion between the frictions between the center as well as the state. Case in point is state governments dragging the central government to the Supreme Court, filing petitions after petitions or application after application, asking the Supreme Court to direct the central government to issue order regarding certain fiscal powers that are purely to be left to the state governments. Now, in this particular context, there is one important topic that you need to understand. The government of India, basically through the order of the president, set up the 16th Finance Commission. The 16th Finance Commission has studied, given recommendations which are applicable for a duration of 5 years, that is from the year 2026 to 2031. The most important, of course, this has to be the most important recommendation, by the way. The most important recommendation of the Finance Commission is regarding the vertical devolution formula. What is the basic idea of a vertical devolution? Out of all the taxes which are collected by the central government in the divisible pool of taxes, how much percentage of this will go to the states and how much will go to the center? The vertical devolution formula has remained unchanged at 41%. But the article is not focused on the vertical devolution. Rather, it focuses on one more very important area of recommendation of the Finance Commission, that is grants. Under the terms of references, generally you will come across 4 important terms of references associated with the Finance Commission. One of the terms of references basically talks about the principles based on which the center will be transferring the grants in aid for the state government. And according to the recommendations of the 16th Finance Commission, the total amount of grants that will be transferred from the center to the state for the duration of 5 years has been kept at 9.47 lakh crore rupees. 9.47 lakh crore rupees. Now, what are the concerns which have been raised in the article? Let's understand that one by one. First and foremost, the states demanded that the vertical devolution be increased from earlier Finance Commission recommendation of 41% to 50%. Understand this. The states demanded that the vertical devolution should be higher. And if you have seen historically the different finance commissions, the vertical devolution has been progressively, I repeat, progressively been increased. For example, earlier Finance Commission gave a recommendation of 32% devolution, which was further increased to 42%, which was readjusted to 41% by the 15th Finance Commission, and the same has been maintained by the 16th Finance Commission. So the demand was that it should be increased from 41% to 50%, and the Finance Commission has not accepted this demand of the states and has maintained the same devolution of 41%. But what is the issue? If the devolution remains unchanged at 41%, what is the issue? On one side, the center will transfer the devolution to the states, or the taxes under the devolution formula to the states. In addition to that, the grants in aid are also supposed to be transferred from the center to the states. The problem here is very simple. When you take the absolute value, of grants which have been recommended by the Finance Commission, it looks very large. 9.47 lakh crore rupees, very large number. But when you compare this as a percentage of the total, right, finances transferred from the or recommended by the Finance Commission, this amount as a percentage is very, very small. In fact, the argument of the writer here is that when you compare it with earlier Finance Commissions, the earlier Finance Commission had recommended 19.4% of the total amount to be transferred in the form of a grant, whereas the 16th FC's absolute amount might be higher. But as a percentage, it is below half of what was recommended by the earlier Finance Commission. It has fallen down to 8.3%. Is everybody okay with this particular statement? Is everyone okay? The absolute number is higher. Again, when I say absolute number, please understand 9.47 lakh crore rupees. Of course, when you compare it with the 15th Finance Commission, it is smaller. With 15th Finance Commission, it is smaller, but historically, these grants, right, have been very important for the states. This is point number 2. Point number 3, in addition to this, one more very important concern is the grants which were earlier given, which were called as sector-specific grants or revenue deficit grants. For example, in the 15th Finance Commission, the Finance Commission has identified 8 sectors and had recommended certain allocation under sector-specific grants. For example, rural road maintenance, right, judiciary infrastructure, educational infrastructure, etc. So 8 sectors were covered, recommendations were provided for providing the grants for the specific sectors. Revenue deficit grants were provided. What was the argument there? From one state to another state, there are various issues. For example, if you take a revenue, right, let's say very huge revenue generating state such as Tamil Nadu, or for that matter Maharashtra, right, or for that matter Gujarat, and compare it with, let's say, the northeastern states, right, there is no fair comparison here, because these particular states have huge industrial base. These states have huge market, so they will be able to generate their own revenues. But there are many other states which are fighting, or which are basically facing a financial issue because they are not able to generate their own revenues. And obviously, there will be a deficit in these particular budgets. So the Finance Commission would recommend revenue deficit grant from the center to be given to the identified states. Now, the 16th Finance Commission has recommended that the revenue deficit grant should be discontinued. What is the argument of the 16th Finance Commission? As long as you keep on providing the revenue deficit grant to the states will not be very efficient. The finances of the state will not be very prudent. Many of these particular states, and this is true to a certain extent, not to every state, not in all the situations, by the way. Many states basically announce policies which can be considered as fiscally profligate. Announcement of, right, let's say free electricity for everybody, announcement of free transportation, public transportation for everyone, announcement of, right, let's say free announcement of loan waiver for all the farmers. These cannot be in any shape or form considered as fiscally prudent measures. So there is a concern, no doubt, regarding that. The finances of the states are in a disarray. The states are in a deficit because of some of these particular policies. But you cannot paint all the states with the same brush. There are certain states which are genuinely facing deficit. In such cases, you should be providing assistance to the states in the form of revenue deficit grant. But what has the 16th Finance Commission recommended? Do away with revenue deficit grant. So have a look at the discussion here. On one side, the states demanded higher devolution. 16th Finance Commission has not done this. Revenue deficit grants discontinued. Sector specific grants discontinued. And the amount which has been transferred, right, that is 9.47 lakh crore rupees as a percentage is not sufficient for the states. When you put together all of these particular issues, the writer argues that the 16th Finance Commission is more focused on protecting the finances of the central government rather than providing equitable treatment to the states. Now, coming to the second point of the discussion. Why am I saying that? The writer argues that Finance Commission is more worried about protecting the finances of the central government. Here is the reason. There are cesses and surcharges. Correct? All of you heard of this? There are cesses and surcharges. The center imposes and collects cesses and surcharges. But there is no compulsion on the central government to include these particular cesses and surcharges as a part of divisible pool of taxes. Historically, especially in the last 1.5 decades, the states have been arguing that central government wants to increase the tax rate. The center wants to increase the tax rate. Rather than simply increasing the full rate of tax, it will increase the tax rate by imposing the cesses. And the center will impose, the tax rate increases, center will collect more and more amount of taxation, but this particular revenue is not shared with the states because this is not counted as a part of the divisible pool of taxes. Right? The states have been arguing against imposing higher cesses by the central government in the past. So on one side, the Finance Commission is recommending that the states should be more prudent. The states should be focused on having better financial policies. But on the other side, why not recommend the same thing for the central government as well? That is, include the cesses and surcharges as a part of divisible pool of taxes. Has it recommended this? Absolutely no. What the 16th FC in fact has done is, over a period of time, it has recommended to the central government that the cesses should be considered as a part of divisible pool of taxes and the states must remain happy with whatever devolution that has been allocated to them. So this is basically the criticism that has been leveled by the writer against the recommendations which have been provided by the 16th Finance Commission. Is everybody able to understand whatever we have discussed? Everybody is okay with the discussion? Now, here is a question based on the concept of Finance Commission. Please solve the question and tell me the answer very quickly. What is the answer? I want everybody to answer. The recommendations of the Finance Commissions are binding on the center. Statement 1. Statement 2. The Finance Commission is a constitutional body. Statement 3. The states are mandated to set up Finance Commission once every 5 years under Article 280. Most of you who have given the option so far or chosen the option have given option B. What about others? Kiran Kadak says option A. Others, I want an answer from everybody, by the way. Yes, you who is sitting silently, looking left and right, checking WhatsApp messages, solve the question and tell me the correct answer. Gabbar Singh says option A. Let's start. The recommendations of the Finance Commissions are binding on the center. This is incorrect. This is incorrect. These are not binding. These are purely advisories in nature. Advisories in nature. The Finance Commission is a constitutional body. Yes, it is set up under Article 280. The states are mandated to set up Finance Commission once every 5 years under Article 280. First part of the statement is correct. Second part of the statement is incorrect. States are to set up a Finance Commission, but not under Article 280, rather under Article 243. Right? So third statement is incorrect. Right option for the question will be option A. Only one of the statements is correct. Now please practice mains answer writing. I've been telling you this every time that I take up the news analysis, I'm repeating again today. Fiscal federalism in India is founded on the principles of both equity and efficiency. Critically examine in the light of the recommendations of the 16th Finance Commission. 250 words, 15 marker question. Practice means answer writing. Now, here is one more homework for you. I want you people to read this particular editorial. In fact, opinion editorial, which appeared in the Hindustan Times couple of days ago. In recent times, there has been a lot of discussion. In fact, reforms, policy recommendations implemented by the government of India to promote setting up of data centers in India. All of you heard of this? Promotion of setting up of global capability centers, data centers in India. But the discussion that is generally covered in the newspaper is one-sided argument. That is, data centers will promote employment, data centers will attract investment, data centers are needed for promotion of artificial intelligence, etc., etc. But this article discusses the second side of the argument. There is a need for having clarity regarding what are the negative repercussions of promoting the concept of global capability centers or data centers. All I want you people to do is download the PDF, use the PDF to read the article, and then attempt this particular question. That's your homework, by the way. Digital infrastructure is the backbone of artificial intelligence economy, but its true environmental cost remain largely invisible. 250 words question, 15 marker. Please attempt it. Done. Now, in addition to this, here is one more very important announcement. Starting today, I'm going to take up special classes every day at 8:30 p.m. on the Unacademy platform. I repeat, 8:30 p.m. every day except Sunday for the next 10 to 12 days. And in these classes, we will be covering all the concepts that are relevant for the Indian Economy GS Paper 3 from the class 12th economics book of Tamil Nadu Board. All you need to do is go to the description box of this particular video. There is a link which has been pasted. Go to the description, you will see this link. Tamil Nadu Board class 12th special class 1 link. Click on this, register for the class, hit the notification button. The moment the class starts, you will be notified. Done. And these are the list of the topics that I'll be covering starting today till 17th August 2026. See you all in the special classes. Now let's move on to the next editorial section. GST, highs and lows. Now don't worry, I'm not going to discuss the concept of GST here. What is the update? What is the important point you need to take away from this editorial article? Recently, the GST collection data was published by the government. The GST collection has crossed 2.11 lakh crore rupees for the month of July 2026. This particular collection of 2.1 lakh crore rupees is one of the highest. It is one of the highest, by the way. Now, what is the concern? If the GST collection is very high, we should be happy, right? The government is collecting more taxes. Government is collecting more income which can be used for many other expenditures. We should be happy. But the article says there is certain hidden, let's say concept that you need to understand which are cause of concern, by the way. What is this idea of a cause of concern in this high number of GST revenue, monthly collection revenue? Please understand, in recent times, because of what has happened in the global market and because of the rupee depreciation, from the month of January itself, rupee has depreciated more than 6% against the dollar. Automatically, what has happened is the imports have become costlier. Everybody is okay with these statements? Imports have become costlier. And when the imports become costlier, that is, let's take a simple number here. Imagine $1 is equal to, let's say, 70 rupees. And after 1 month, $1 becomes is equal to 75 rupees. Hypothetical numbers, by the way. I know you know it is not 70 or 75. It is much higher than this today. But let's imagine after 1 month, the rupee value falls down to 75 against the dollar. So don't you think the market price of the import will become higher? And when the market price of the import becomes higher, obviously the GST collected by the government will also become higher. Everybody is okay with this connection? Because of the market price increase, obviously, right, the GST collection, because the GST is imposed on imports, GST is imposed and collected on the domestic production. So the GST has been imposed on the market price or the price of the product, and the GST collection has increased. This is basically the cause of concern that has been raised, right, in this particular article. So the 2.1 lakh crore rupees doesn't necessarily basically represent the consumption increase in the domestic market. Because please understand, very often GST is taken, or GST data is taken for measuring economic activities. Argument is, if the consumption increases, that is, people are purchasing more and more goods and services, in as a result of that, you will see the collection of GST will also be much higher, right? So GST data is taken to represent, right, let's say increased demand for goods and services, increased consumption of goods and services, resilience of the Indian economy, etc. But what the article says is, one of the reasons why the GST collection has increased is because the cost of imports have been higher. That is not representing resilience of Indian economy. That is not representing the strength of consumption demand in the Indian economy. This is the first very important concern raised in the article. Second important concern, only 2 points. Let's cover only 2. Second important point is, the states are concerned about their revenues. Even under GST, they're concerned about their revenues. Why? There are hardly around 16 states and union territories that have reported the growth rate of the GST revenues, which is basically higher than the national average. 16 states and union territories are earning GST, and the GST is increasing at a rate which is higher than the national average, which means majority of the other stakeholders, that is the states and union territories, their growth rate in case of the GST collections have been much lower or lower than the national average, which is a cause of concern for many of the states. In fact, many of the states, even today, you ask the states, they will demand compensation cess to be continued, although it is already withdrawn. They will demand other forms of reforms under the GST, etc. So the concern is the higher amount of GST revenue collected for the month of July, right? That doesn't show the real picture of what is happening in Indian economy in terms of consumption, in terms of demand, etc. So going forward, the government of India will obviously come out with another set of reforms under GST 3.0. The government must ensure these kind of issues will be resolved, and the growth in the tax receipts under the GST will not remain concentrated in some of the states. The benefits will be expanded to other states as well. So these are some of the important points in the editorial article. Now here is a question on concept of GST. Answer the question very quickly. Consider the following statements. Imports and exports are zero rated under GST. Maximum rate of taxation under GST is 40%. GST is a destination based tax. How many of the above 3 statements are correct? Tell me the correct answer quickly. Option B. All those who have given the option or answer as of now, they have chosen option B. Rajesh Kumar says option A. Okay, option B. Let's start. Imports and exports are zero rated under GST. This is incorrect. This is incorrect. Please remember, exports are zero rated. Imports attract IGST, integrated GST. Please remember this. Exports are zero rated. Imports attract integrated GST, because the center simply says the imports will be treated as interstate supplies under GST. Hence, first statement is incorrect. The maximum rate of taxation under GST is 40%. GST is a destination based tax, which simply means the state where the consumption happens will be getting the SGST component. Of the 3 statements, 2 statements are correct. Right option is option B. Only 2 are correct. Ashish Gupta, my dear, please check. What is the doubt? If there is any confusion, raise it. I'll address it at the end. Okay, next important article, Science and Technology. There is a quantum shift in research and development spending in India. What are the important points? According to the latest estimates which have been issued by the Ministry of Science and Technology, there has been a huge improvement in terms of R&D spending that is incurred by the private sector. This is important. From the private sector, there is increased spending on R&D. For the first time in multiple years, we have seen that the private spending within the R&D has been more than 51%. Please remember this. It is more than 51%. That's a very, very good outcome for India, by the way. Because when you see the overall R&D expenditure in case of India, generally the concern is it is not sufficient. It is very less. Right? The government wants to have 2.5%, but we are not able to meet that particular target. The other countries are spending more in R&D. Absolute expenditure has been increasing, but as a percentage of GDP, it has been less than 1%. All these concerns are always there. But what has been an encouraging outcome according to the latest data published by the government, the spending on R&D has now hit more than 0.8 percentage of GDP after many, many years. That's a first important point. Second important point is gross expenditure on research and development is 2.4 lakh crore rupees for the financial year 23 and 24. Second important point. Third, and this is very important by the way, third most important point is the expenditure out of all of this, the private sector expenditure or spending on research and development is more than 51%. It is more than 51%. This is the first time that the private sector has crossed half of the total spending on R&D. This is important point. Please remember this. Please remember this. Although the expenditure has crossed more than 0.8%, right, since 2009, first time it has crossed, when you compare it with other countries such as China, USA, right, South Korea, our expenditure still is far below compared to their expenditure, again as a percentage of GDP. As a percentage of GDP. Now the question arises, what has happened? What has happened so that we can say that, okay, overall expenditure has increased, private sector is spending more. The reason behind this particular spike in the expenditure is said to be one, after pandemic, the private sector seems to have understood that in order to gain competitive advantage in the market, in order to become competitive with rest of the world companies in the global market, etc., they need to invest in the research and development. And that has led to private sector spending more and more money on R&D. That's the first one. Second reason behind this particular rise or spike in the expenditure in R&D is said to be better method to collect data. Better methodology are now being used by the government, the authorities under the government to collect the data. As a result of this, the overall expenditure data that is published now by the DST is said to be much accurate compared to earlier system. These are the two reasons. Having said so, there is still a concern. There is still a concern. What is a concern? The concern is that the private sector, they have increased their spending on R&D. That's good initiative. There is an encouraging move. But even today, when you look at the total expenditure done by the private sector on R&D, it is smaller, it is lower compared to the expenditure of the private sector in advertisements. Marketing. In simple terms, the overall expenditure that is done by these particular private sector companies for marketing purposes, it is higher compared to R&D spending. So the government of India should prompt, right, basically push these particular private sector entities to invest more and more in R&D, which is already being done by the government of India, by the way. For example, the government of India set up RDI, right, a new initiative, RDI, under which 1 lakh crore rupees has been set up by the government of India for promotion of the deep tech technologies in India. The deep tech startups classification or the definition has been reframed by the Ministry of Commerce. All these kind of reforms are being implemented by the government to promote private sector investment in R&D. Done? Right? So these are certain important points. Let's move on to the next article. Everybody is okay with the discussion? Please do let me know in the chat section. Next article, Police Modernization Scheme awaits a Finance Ministry's nod. What is the current affairs article all about? What is the discussion happening here? Very simple. Back in the year 2020, the Supreme Court of India issued a judgment. Paramveer Singh Saini versus Baljit Singh. In this particular 2021, just make a correction, 2021 judgment of Supreme Court, it mandated that in order to ensure that the people who are caught by the police, people who are arrested by the police are treated right fairly, are not manhandled, or there is no cruelty against these particular people, etc. The Supreme Court of India mandated that there should be CCTV installations at certain specific places in the police station. Simple. It is about police brutality. Police brutality not outside the police station, in and surrounding the police station itself. So the Supreme Court of India directed the police stations to ensure that, or the states must ensure that CCTVs must be installed. Right? And after this, there was investigations conducted. There were multiple articles which were written in different newspapers stating that despite the Supreme Court's order, the installations of CCTV has not picked up pace right to the expected level. In fact, right, have a look at the headline that I've taken from Indian Express newspaper. Have a look at this particular headline. This was in fact reported in the month of July 2026. July 2026. Supreme Court order was issued in 2021. This is in July 2026. According to the amicus curiae, who has been appointed by the Supreme Court to assist the Supreme Court in this case, they have submitted a report. According to this particular report, in states such as Jharkhand, not even a single CCTV has been installed in the police station. Not even a single CCTV so far has been installed in the police station. Right? So Jharkhand yet to install a single camera. Himachal only state to receive central government funds. So an evaluation was conducted and the report was submitted by the amicus curiae to the Supreme Court. Now Supreme Court of India has asked Government of India what kind of reforms are being implemented in order to ensure that the earlier judgment of Supreme Court of India is implemented. That is, CCTVs are installed in the police stations. And to this, the representative of Government of India has given a reply to the Supreme Court stating that there is an initiative that has been considered by the Government of India to modernize police forces, to modernize the police forces. And this particular initiative has been designed. Now the government is waiting, essentially the authorities are waiting for the approval to be given by the Ministry of Finance. Because I hope you understand this. Whenever these kind of expenditures will have to be incurred, you need approval from the Ministry of Finance. So the initiative is ready. They are waiting for the approval from the Ministry of Finance. And once the approval is given, the funds will be released to the states to modernize the police reforms or to implement the police reforms. Right, basically installation of CCTVs along with many other, right, let's say purchases shall be done by the state governments. This is an update. In addition to this, there is also an initiative which is already there in the place. The Ministry of Home Affairs, MHA, Ministry of Home Affairs has already implemented an initiative. Under this, assistance, the name of the initiative is Assistance to the States and Union Territories for Modernization of Police Scheme. This particular initiative was supposed to end in 2026. Now the Government of India has clarified or given, right, let's say information to the Supreme Court stating that this initiative has been extended by one more year. That is till March 31st, 2027, the initiative will be implemented. So these are the two very important updates regarding the Supreme Court order to install CCTVs to ensure that there are no custodial deaths, there is no torture conducted by the police, and even, right, the people who are accused, if they are arrested, there is right treatment given to them. And so this is basically the update. Can we go forward? Next article, Mission Clouded Leopard. Now before somebody says, sir, yesterday I've covered it. I know. Some of you will not even look at the discussion, look at the heading and start posting the comments. And by the way, I go through all of your comments. Yesterday, there was a very interesting comment given by one of the student. Sir, these topics are repetition of what was conducted or what was discussed by Abhishek sir. My dear, please go to the list of the topics and tell me what was repeated. Right? Please do let me know. And coming to this particular point or this article today, is it going to be a repetition of yesterday? Absolutely no. Yesterday was the PIB article which stated that the government of India on the International Clouded Leopard Day has come out with a comprehensive action plan. That was yesterday's article. Today's article is not on the central government, rather, it is on the state of Meghalaya. It is on the state of Meghalaya. On the International Clouded Leopard Day, the state of Meghalaya, whose state animal, this can be a potential question by the way, whose state animal is clouded leopard, now has announced a new initiative. That is the mission Clouded Leopard. The state of Meghalaya has announced a mission Clouded Leopard. And objectives are same, right? Objective is have community participation, ensure, right, their right, let's say the nature is protected, their ecosystem is protected so that there is no intervention and their population will not decline, poaching will not be conducted, etc., etc. Done. So it is the state animal of Meghalaya. In addition to this, in couple of other articles, regional newspaper articles, the local names of clouded leopard was also printed. So you never know what UPSC might do. They might ask you these particular local names as well. Please be very careful. So in Garo, Khasi and Jaintia, what are the right local names which are used to refer to the clouded leopards? I've mentioned it. Please go through all of them. So this is just an update, not the repetition of yesterday's discussion. Now based on this, let me know what is the correct answer to this question. You will know the point 2. You will know point 2, but question is not just on point 2, question is on point 1, 2 and 3. Quickly tell me what is the correct answer to the question. Please tell me what is the correct answer to this particular question. And if you say, sir, point 2 is a repetition of yesterday, I'll agree with you. I will agree with you. But in today's other newspapers, lot of this information has been thrown, so I've taken the other information as well. Mahe says option D. Mahe, my dear, I'm presuming that I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Anushka Singh says option D. Jupiter says option D. Okay, others? Kiran says option C. Avantika says option C. What about others? Okay, let's start. The clouded leopard is classified as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List. Yes, that is true. Schedule 1 of Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Yes, that is true. Appendix 1 of CITES. That is also correct. Right. So classification of leopard is under all the three. Please be very careful. Can be asked in the prelims. And those who are saying, sir, wait. I've asked ChatGPT. It is searching and it is telling me just have patience. My dear, be very careful. In the UPSC examination hall, you will not get access to ChatGPT, by the way. So right option for the question is option D. Let's move on to the next article. To make the discussion comprehensive, there was one more important article in Indian Express. I've picked it up. Tribal Welfare Initiatives. The government of India has written a letter to the state governments, right? And this particular direction is more towards, just a second. This is a direction more towards the district magistrate. That is basically you people, once you become DMs, you will have to follow these kind of guidelines. So what is the direction which has been issued? There are multiple reforms, initiatives that have been announced by the government of India to promote, right, and basically promote the growth and development amongst the tribal population. But like any other reform in India, there is always a concern if people who are the beneficiaries, are they aware of these initiatives? Are they even having any kind of information regarding what kind of reform has been implemented by the government of India? There is always a concern. And once you become a district collector, please do not blame it on the people. Don't blame it on the people and simply say people ought to know this. People must read a newspaper. People should be searching for all of this in the website. No, my dear, you can't blame it on the people. Why? My dear, you're talking about tribal population in the first place. Or for that matter, any population, you cannot put the blame on them. It is the duty of the government authorities to ensure there is right dissemination of the information. Is it okay? It is your duty to ensure that the people who belong to that particular group of the beneficiaries must be aware of all of this. So, what has the government of India directed all the states to do now? Hold mass outreach camps. Hold mass outreach camps. And this is right to be done in the next week, 13th to 15th August 2026. The recommendation, or let's say the direction, is that there is, right, let's say there are Adi Seva Kendras. There are Adi Seva Kendras which have been built or which have been constructed in many of these particular villages. In these Adi Seva Kendras, why not use the volunteer services? Volunteer services, for example, the Prime Minister very recently, last year, has launched Adi Karma Yogi Abhiyan. How many of you have come across this? Under Adi Karma Yogi Abhiyan, the objective is to basically have certain volunteer, right, let's say groups or volunteers at the grassroots level. Right, the target is to have volunteers, that is 20 lakh volunteers. And these 20 lakh volunteers will be spread across 1 lakh villages in India. And they will basically interact with the tribal population, the beneficiary group, and they will disseminate information. They will work as intermediary between the government officials as well as the tribal youth, etc., etc. Right, so the government has directed the states that they should be using this volunteer population. That is the first one. And when this particular, right, initiative will be conducted, that is mass outreach is to be conducted, the government also has directed that there are other initiatives such as Dharti Aba Janjatiya Gram Utkarsh Abhiyan, as well as Pradhan Mantri Janjat Adivasi Nyaya Maha Abhiyan. These kind of initiatives are already in place. More and more beneficiaries should be provided with information. They should be brought under the coverage of these initiatives. For example, the DAJGUA. Earlier, in fact, it was a different name for this. Right? Please do let me know why this particular name Dharti Aba is used in the name of this initiative. Let me see how many of you are aware of this. Because I'm saying this, earlier, this initiative was known as Pradhana Mantri Janjatiya Gram Utkarsh Abhiyan. But the government of India renamed this as the Dharti Aba Janjatiya Gram Utkarsh Abhiyan. Let me know why the renaming was conducted. But the objective of the initiative is very simple. Social, right, let's say infrastructure leakages or gaps are present, not leakages, gaps are present. For example, education, healthcare infrastructure, etc. There is a huge gap in these particular villages. The initiative targets at plugging these particular gaps. And the second initiative that I've listed here, Pradhana Mantri Janjati Adivasi Nyaya Maha Abhiyan, this is targeted at promoting the socio-economic welfare of the PVTGs. So come to, right, let's say the question that I've asked so far, please do let me know. Any particular reason? Any particular reason why this name was changed? Mahe says because of Birsa Munda. Okay. I'm glad, by the way, a lot of you are reading newspapers, right? I'm glad you are remembering, you're able to recollect, etc. Absolutely right. Right. The name earlier, it was Prime Minister Janjatiya Gram Utkarsh Abhiyan. This was renamed as the Dharti Aba because, right, to basically commemorate Birsa Munda. Right, a very well-known personality in, right, the earlier fights against Britishers. That is the precise reason, right, Dharti Aba basically represents Birsa Munda. That's the reason renaming was conducted. Done? Everybody is okay? Right, so these are certain important points from another article, another newspaper. Please be very careful. Next, yesterday, the announcement of monetary policy review was conducted. No change in repo rate, by the way. No change in repo rate. Right, so repo rate has remained same, LAF corridor remains same, right, MSF also remains same, etc. SDF also remains same. But one announcement that you'll have to make a note of is the polymer currency notes. The Reserve Bank of India's governor has stated that we are going to launch polymer currency notes very soon. And right, over a period of time, the polymer currency notes will be implemented, introduced in India in larger denominated currencies as well. According to the reports as of now, the lower denomination currency notes such as 10 rupee note and 20 rupee note are expected to be introduced in the form of polymer notes. Polymer is basically the plastic currency notes. So the Reserve Bank of India, it has tried it earlier as well. Earlier also, a lot of feasibility studies have been conducted. But every now and then, there have been concerns regarding whether these polymer currency notes are suitable to Indian environment, climate, or not. And that is the precise reason. Now, there is clarity that has been provided by the RBI governor. The statement is very clear. The RBI governor simply says there is a particular procedure that we are supposed to follow. That is, we are supposed to take the approval from the respective authorities. And the authorities basically here is the finance ministry. Because whenever RBI has to introduce the currency notes, first it takes the approval from the finance ministry. So there is a procedure that we are supposed to follow, and in the next financial year, we are going to introduce polymer currency notes. So this is just an update. Please make a note of this. Be ready for the polymer or the plastic currency notes, right, in India. Now, next article, cyber threats and ports. DGMA. DGMA stands for Directorate General of Maritime Administration. This functions under the Ministry of Shipping and Ports. Now, please understand what is the update or what is the important, let's say, issue that has been raised by the DGMA. In case of India, there are ports. There are major ports. There are minor or non-major ports. Before I go forward, here is my question to all of you. According to you people, how many major ports are there in India? Those present in the live session, do let me know in the chat section. And those who are going to watch the video later, recorded session, let me know in the comment section. And trust me when I say this, I read all of your comments. I go through all of your comments. Okay? Right. So DGMA basically says that in case of India, the importance of ports is increasing. In fact, more than 90% of the total volume of the trade that India does with the rest of the world is through the ports. More than 60% by value is through ports. And in case of the ports, after 9/11 incident, the International Maritime Organization introduced a new system, a new framework was introduced. And that is basically called as ISPS. ISPS, that is International Ship and Port Facility Security. Port Facility Security. So the International Maritime Organization proposed ISPS. It was introduced, accepted in the year 2002 and adopted and implemented, or basically adopted in 2002 and came into force from 2004. What is the basic idea? It is a framework. It is a set of certain guidelines that have to be adopted by, right, the port infrastructure. For what purposes? In order to improve security, in order to ensure, right, the operations of the ports or all the services offered by the ports, etc., are secured enough, streamlined enough, etc. So this particular guideline has been adopted in case of India as well. But the DGMA simply says, because the ports are so relevant, so important in order to promote, right, let's say transportation of goods and services, in order to move the people, etc., when you are dependent more and more on the adoption of technology, you also become vulnerable for cyber threats. You also become more and more vulnerable for cyber threats. For example, right, in recent times, I'm pretty sure all of you heard of the kind of cyber frauds which are being committed. Earlier, we were dependent on, let's say, the physical transactions or physical operations. Now we have shifted to digital tools. Along with adoption of digital tools, there is always a cyber threat involved. So that kind of a concern has been raised by the DGMA, and it recommends that going forward, whenever the inspections are conducted, whenever review is conducted, etc., the review also has to be conducted regarding the adoption of these kind of technologies which are done by the ports themselves. So that if there is any loophole, if there is any issue, if there is a potential threat, right, because of the cyber attacks, etc., these kind of risks can be addressed at the right time. So these are some of the important points mentioned in the article here. Now, next, China announces countermeasures against Washington. What is the update here, right? What is an update? If you have seen in the last 1.5 years, multiple measures have been implemented by the government of USA against China specifically. China specifically, right? They do not want China to get access to the latest semiconductors. They do not want China to get access to latest, right? Let's say other forms of technologies, etc., etc. In addition to this, USA also has been imposing sanctions on some of the Chinese companies. Some of the Chinese companies. The latest example is even India was targeted under this. The Directorate General for, I'm sorry, the sorry, USTR, not Director General, USTR. Basically, the authorities in the United States conducted investigations against multiple countries, including India and China, arguing that these particular countries have not implemented sufficient reforms to control the imports of certain goods which are manufactured using forced labor. Which were manufactured using forced labor. So the argument is India was targeted, investigations were conducted, tariff has been announced. China also has been targeted, right? Tariffs or certain restrictions have been announced on some of the Chinese companies. So against these kind of practices of USA, now China also has retaliated and has announced countermeasures against companies from USA. It has imposed a restriction on exporting some of the technologies to USA. It has imposed sanctions on some of the USA companies. So this kind of a tit for tat policy is being adopted by China. Let's wait and see what will happen in the coming days, because there is a visit, right, which is supposed to happen in the coming months from Chinese head to the USA. Right? So these are some of the very important updates regarding the China's, right, let's say the recent position against USA measures. One more update from for umpteenth time now. I'm pretty sure in the last 6 months, those who are, right, let's say appearing for the news analysis, those who are reading newspaper, etc., every day at least once, and the keyword is at least once, you would have come across Strait of Hormuz. And today is no different, by the way. Today is no different. There is one more update regarding, right, Strait of Hormuz. According to the latest publications, latest information that has been given by Iranian authorities, there is a discussion that has been conducted between the authorities of Oman as well as Iran. And this discussion has yielded results. They are ready to sign an agreement to basically have one trade route, a specific route open in the Strait of Hormuz. This is just an update. Nothing else is relevant. Whether it is operational or not, you will have to wait and see. Because if you go by the articles, right, as well as the statements of Mr. Donald Trump, which basically keep on shifting from one anger or one extreme to another extreme within the same day, the argument is the trade route, or let's say the strait, will be open. But please understand, what if USA will again start bombing Iran? Which he has stated, by the way. President has stated, or President of US has stated, we are going to take action against Iran. We are going to bomb Iran again. So if any kind of these kind of, right, let's say actions are conducted, obviously, again, the Strait of Hormuz will come under pressure. Again, the, right, let's say the closure of Hormuz will happen, right? And again, USA will attack, and this particular cycle will continue to happen. So let's wait and see what is going to happen. But this is just an update. There is agreement, or basically there is a dialogue which has happened. Both of these countries are very nearer to sign an agreement now. Okay, one more important update, just an important update. Sheikh Hasina has conducted a press conference yesterday, and she has announced that she will be, right, going back to Bangladesh in the month of December. Just an update. Don't worry about whatever statements she has given. This, no doubt, is going to create certain problems between the administration of Bangladesh and the government of India. Although the government of India has very categorically stated that they don't have anything to do with the press conference that was conducted by the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, but the administration of Bangladesh also has stated that they had asked government of India not to allow this press conference to be conducted. Right? Although this kind of, like, let's say the information that was provided, press conference was conducted, she has stated that, right, in the month of December, she is going to return to Bangladesh. Right? So this is just an update. Just note down this. Last article for today, Lalit Kala Academy. Last article, just important information. Lalit Kala Academy basically has celebrated 72nd Foundation Day. It has celebrated its a 72nd Foundation Day. Important point, it functions under Ministry of Culture. It was established back in the year 1954. These are the two data points from the PIB article. You can remember these particular points. Now, please understand, a lot of you will go to the PIB website, look at the number of articles that were published, and you will say, sir, many articles were there in the PIB. For example, in the PIB yesterday I'm talking about, that is on the 5th of August, there were 110 publications. Is it okay? There were 110 publications. Now, please be honest. Will you be able to read and remember all the 110 publications which were published yesterday on PIB? So, you don't have to read and remember everything that is published in the PIB on day-to-day basis. Whatever is important, simply take it forward. Remember only that. Done? So, these are the important things I wanted to discuss in today's session, along with the questions, along with homework, etc. If you have liked this particular session, do not forget to hit the like button. If you are yet to subscribe to the Unacademy IAS YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. But before I close the session, anybody has any kind of a question regarding whatever has been discussed, do let me know. Any kind of question? Any kind of a doubt, confusion, etc., do let me know. Nothing? Done then. Right? Thanks a lot. Take care. Do not miss out the special classes which are starting today at 8:30 p.m. on the Unacademy platform. Okay. So take care. See you all next time when I take up the Hindu newspaper analysis. Have a great day.